Hi Zulily fans, welcome to Facebook Live. Here today with Angela, who is our baker extraordinaire and creative stylist. Welcome, Angela.
Hi, happy to be here.
Well, thank you so much for being here. So we have Valentine's Day right around the corner, a couple weeks out. And so what better way to ring in that holiday with some Galentines, right? Yeah. So have all your gals over. We want to make some great cookies, some perfect cookies. You are the person to go to for that. I want you to share with us some of your favorite tips and tricks and for a successful Galentine's Day out.
Yeah, absolutely. Or in or out, whatever,
Yeah. Well, first of all, I mean, you got to find your favorite and your recipe, right?
Exactly.
So where did you get this recipe? This is your favorite, right?
So this recipe I actually made up myself, but for most people out there, you're relying a little bit more on Pinterest, maybe a little bit more on your friends, maybe some recipe book that you have hidden somewhere. Basically with sugar cookies, you can't go super wrong with any recipe, but what I like to do is just kind of start off with your wet ingredients and your dry ingredients, with any measurements that you're kind of going off of.
And just so you guys know, these are the cute cookies we will be doing today. They're just darling. Love these. I think even I can do these, but I mean,
anyone can.
You can show me.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're going to want to start with your dry ingredients first, right?
Yes. So what I do is you mix the dry ingredients first. It usually consists of any amount of flour and baking powder and salt. It's pretty straightforward. So I have that, and I already mixed them, set them off to the side. Just going to give you a little look on the lovely flour. And then these are your wet ingredients. So it's usually comprised of just butter, white sugar, and an egg.
Great. Well, thank you. And you guys, if you're tuned in, say hello. If you have any questions, let us know. Welcome. And, welcome, Deborah. So, yes. Okay, so you've got your wet ingredients, right?
Yes.
And then, I know you have a secret to this, but what is it that makes the secret ingredient that makes cookies that you want to go back for after, more and more again? So what is your secret for that?
Yeah, so the thing I like to do to keep my sugar cookies a little bit new and different is I have a mixture of vanilla and almond extract.
Okay.
So most people just add vanilla extract in with their sugar cookies and it gives it that nice sweetness, but I like to add a little bit of nutty flavor to it.
Nice.
And not only that, but almond extract is clear, so you can add a little bit more of it without the risk of really yellowing up the batter a ton.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, that's something I definitely would not have thought of.
Yeah. So you can even smell it. I'm sure you listeners, our viewers at home wouldn't be able to smell it right now.
It smells amazing.
It smells like pure almond.
You just want to eat the dough, but you really shouldn't,
You really especially before adding the dry ingredients. It's mostly butter and egg.
Perfect.
So then what you would do is just slowly add the dry ingredients and mix it kind of as you go.
Great. And Angela, I feel like my dough is never the right consistency. I always feel like it gets really dry. Is that good, or?
It is. So for sugar cookies, you're almost looking for a shortbread texture, but not quite that extreme with the dryness. But as you can see, as I mix it, you're really having to kind of push the flour into the wet ingredients and it starts to clump and really feel dry.
But that's what you want?
That's what you want, yes. So you want to resist the urge to keep adding more mixture. A lot of people will want to add more butter or some milk or something, but really you want that crumbly texture.
That is really great to know, because I feel like I add a lot. I want it moist,
Well, the thing that you can do also is that as you're mixing it, I'm just going to add the rest here, but we're not going to finish off this dough necessarily. But what you're looking for is that dryness, and if it becomes too difficult to work with your spatula, what you would do is just take it with your hands and really work it like a bread dough.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Well, that kind of brings us to our next step, which would be kneading it and rolling it out, right?
Kneading it and rolling it out. So I'm going to actually set this off to the side.
Perfect.
So I'm just going to show you really quick. We're not going to roll it here today, but after you get that perfect consistency, what you want to do is cut your cookies with these cute little heart-shaped cookie cutters or whatever you end up finding. And you want to put them on a baking sheet. You can either use parchment paper or no parchment paper, but I usually prefer no, because you get a little bit of that browning underneath it, which is perfect.
Yeah. No, those look great. So I guess I'm always not sure. So how thick should the dough really be?
Yeah, so I would go anywhere between 1/4 inch and 1/2 inch because I like a really thick cookie that I can put a lot of frosting on and really get into. So you can see that when it's done, it actually rises a little bit and has that like really nice ridge look. And then when
it looks really flaky.
Yeah, and when you have the dough, you can see it rises a little bit and you can almost see that flake, but then if you freeze it, it'll actually harden so that you can get that perfect rise.
Okay, great. And how long do you want to freeze it? Like what you want to, I guess, do you put it in there for what?
Yeah, I would
An hour?
And I mean, you could, but I would put it in anywhere between 10 and 15 minutes. It's really all you need on a good freeze. It'll keep that perfect heart shape and it'll avoid any of your cookies spreading in the future.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if you do go up to an hour, which some people might have to do for time.
Forget about it.
Or forget about, whatever. Life happens. I would just take them out of the freezer and either put them in the refrigerator for like 20 minutes or just leave them out for maybe 10 minutes just so they're not like brick hard and that they do get that consistent bake all the way through.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Okay, so then what?
Okay, so then after you've taken your cookies out and they, what I normally do is I take them straight out of the oven and I keep them on the baking tray for at least 5 to 10 minutes so that they really get that nice like finish cook.
Well, but really, when are we going to put it in the oven? What do we set it at?
Oh, right. We said, well, it depends on your recipe, but I would set it at 350. And thank you for pointing that out. What I would normally do is set the oven actually when I put the cookies into the freezer to freeze for a little bit because that gives me a good time frame for the oven to heat up.
Very efficient. That seems like a good way to do it.
Yeah, we're not wasting electricity,
Exactly. And then, if you have like an oven that might be, stronger or, I don't know, do you ever do test cookies or anything?
Yeah, actually the first time I ever do any type of cookie recipe or recipe in general, but it's easier with cookies because you usually have leftover batter, is I would do 1 or 2 cookies, just a test run and put them straight in the oven and then just kind of see and gauge for timing so that when you do the rest of your cookies, you can just put them in, know exactly what time, leave them, wait for the timer and do it that way.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, so now, it's been in there, 350, you take them out, so now what?
Now what? Okay, so now is when I would let them sit for a little bit. And then after they've cooled on the drying rack for maybe like 5 to 10 minutes, I would take them off the drying rack and put them on the tray and put them on a cooling rack.
So, okay, I definitely have done this before, but what happens if you put frosting on a cookie when it's still a little warm?
It's a melty mess.
Thank you. Yes, that's exactly what happens.
It's exactly what happens. You do not want to put frosting on a warm cookie because it won't hold its shape. And while it would be still delicious to eat, more of a dunking situation than an actual decorating situation for your gals.
And I say, especially if it's going to cool for a while, I feel like this is a good time to then have the gals come over for your Galentine's night because I feel like while it's good, it's kind of like a solo project, mixing it all together, but have the gals over for the decorating part, which is always my favorite. So
exactly. So if you're having your like Galentine's Day party situation, you might as well all get in on the fun together. So that's what we're gonna do.
Great. Okay. So what's next?
Yes.
So you've got frosting. How do you even decide what type of frosting to use?
So the frostings that I usually stick to, we have 3 different types of frostings. I'll show you my little pre-piped bags here, just with a little bit of some scissors so I can cut them up later. But what I would normally do is, there are 3 options here. For a buttercream frosting is what I would do when I want to eat them right away and I want the most flavorful, like decadent frosting. What I would do if I wanted something to ship to people and to really like harden, I would use a royal icing, which has meringue powder in it, so it really sets and has that glossy finish. And then for a kind of a basic, really simple recipe, which is actually what we've done here, is a pretty simple powdered sugar recipe. So you can make this with powdered sugar and then basically water or vanilla extract or sometimes lemon if you're getting fancy. I like to use almond milk just because sticking with the nutty flavors, I always think that goes well together.
All right. And hi, Betty from Toronto. Welcome, welcome.
Hi, Betty.
All right. So now what? So now you've got are we going to start with the outline here or?
Yes. So as you can see here,
the simple things first.
So we're doing 2 different types of icing here. And actually they're the same icing, just different consistencies. So we're going to do this in 2 steps. This is what we're going for. We're going to start with that outer line, and then we're
Okay.
going to flood it with a red frosting.
Flooding.
Yes.
Okay.
So flooding
There's
is
a new
just,
term.
Yeah, it is a really thin icing that just dries seamlessly. So you can really see that on the top here, there is no bumping. You can't see any
Ooh,
ridges.
nice and smooth.
Nice and smooth.
And hi, Tammy. Welcome. All right. So.
All right. So
we're
I
gonna
have
do this piping, right?
Yes, we're gonna do some piping, and I've gone ahead and pre-mixed this frosting.
So, okay. I know you're a pro, but what if you don't have a piping bag? Then what?
So these actually are just your basic gallon-sized plastic bags that you can get from any grocery store. I do use piping bags when I'm trying to get more of that, like, stylized look, but for a quick fix
For
and
one, a
at
design
home,
or-
yeah,
okay.
exactly. But for this, really all you need is any type of Ziploc bag or gallon-sized sandwich bag, and then you just cut a tiny little piece on the end, and I always go a little bit too small at first in case.
Better to start there, right?
Exactly. You don't want to at any point accidentally have all of your icing coming out at once.
All right.
So
And hi, Katie. Katie's from Michigan. Welcome, welcome.
So as you can see, I'm just piping along the outside.
Oh yeah, you've got a nice steady hand.
A little bit. I normally would go slightly thicker on the frosting so that it comes out slightly smoother, but I'd rather do this than have a hot mess.
And hi, Kim from Florida. If you guys have any questions, just let us know. Welcome.
So that's my really cute,
I mean,
perfectly iced cookie. And what I'm gonna have you do, Elle, is try and practice on this one while I do a little bit of royal icing, or sorry, flooding.
All right. Yeah, we'll see about this. We'll see how. I mean, actually, you guys can do this.
It's really not that hard. It's perfect at home. All you need is this, just a couple ingredients.
So yeah, I guess I'm kind of curious. Like, how do you know what consistency you want? I mean, seems great for what we're doing here, but how do you even figure that out?
Yeah, so what I look for in a piping consistency is basically when I'm mixing it and you take the spoon and you pull it up, or spatula or whatever you're using, you pull it up and you watch what we call, I call it ribbons basically is what you call it, but you watch as it ribbons against the rest of the icing. You want it to hold its shape for a little bit, and that means that when you put it on the cookie, it'll hold its shape.
That sounds very professional.
It is so not even that professional, I promise you.
That's a technical term.
Yes. So then what you're looking for in a flooding icing is basically you can take the exact same icing you had before right here, and then add a little bit more liquid, and then you get this, well, and also food coloring. And then you get your thinner icing, and what you want there is to pull the spoon up and then just have it flow consistently down without clumping.
And actually, Kim had a great question. She asked if the consistency was like toothpaste, and I would say it seems like for this piping, it's definitely like toothpaste. So
Yes.
that's a good call out.
Absolutely, that's the perfect consistency for it. For the piping, you want the toothpaste, and for the royal for the flooding, I keep calling it royal icing, and that is not what we're working with. Yeah,
Powdered sugar, right?
powdered sugar icing. You want it to be a lot thinner. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this, and this might get a little bit messy.
So yeah, while you're cutting that, I'll answer Katie here. So Katie, where to find these recipes? This is actually a recipe that Angela has made up, but we suggest, your favorite shortbread or sugar cookie recipes. So we're kind of using some tips and tricks for any of the recipes, any of your favorite recipes that you have.
All right, so what I would do is just...
Well, that just came out really nice
It
there.
does, yeah. You don't want to get too fancy with the flooding icing because it is pretty liquidy. So what I would normally do is actually take a toothpick and just kind of run it around the sides. But I didn't bring a toothpick here with me today.
It looks like it's filling in quite well, though.
It does, yeah. So what you can also do is kind of rotate it around, and the icing will fill in. And if you've done...
Oh, look, here's a toothpick.
Oh, a magic toothpick appeared. What? So what you can do is just use the toothpick to really push and manipulate the icing down. And you don't want to be too scared, because if you did a good job on your piping, it'll hold its shape. It won't go anywhere.
Now, do you have to wait any amount of time in between the piping and the flooding?
Absolutely. So what you want to do is wait at least an hour after you've done the white piping or whatever piping around the outside that you want to do, because if you don't wait, then the flooding icing will actually just mix in with the white and it'll look a little bit tie-dye and also not hold its shape.
But I guess if you want that look.
I mean, that is also a very specific Valentine's Day look that anyone could do.
Love it, love it. Okay, so you have this, and the flooding looks impeccable.
Thank you.
Since now that I can use that term, now that I know what it is. So let's say you want to put some sprinkles on it or anything, like would you do that now or?
So now would be the best time to not do that.
Okay.
So what you would want to do, I have an example here. You don't want to wait too long, but you also don't want to do it right away, because if you do it right away, what will happen is all of the sprinkles will just sink to the bottom and the flooding won't actually hold them up. So they'll kind of, you'll see them, but they won't really have that like perfect sparkle on the top.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, so I would wait probably maybe 10 minutes, not too much longer, because then the icing will actually start to harden and it'll crack as you try and put them down.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like it's like smushed in there.
Exactly.
Or something like that, like broken.
Yeah, and you don't want a broken Galentine's cookie.
This is true. This is true. Okay, so I love these. These are great. Okay, so let's say we're done. We're sprinkled. Now, really, how long until you can like gift them or stack them on top of each other if you want to send them to your friends or?
Yes, so for eating, anytime. You can eat them as soon as you want, as soon as all your decorations are there. The frosting is good regardless. But what I recommend doing is gifting them to people. And maybe after your Galentine's party, you have some extras and you want to give them away. So what I always do is if I make them anytime after like noon, I always leave them overnight. The frosting will trick you. It'll make you think that it's hardened and ready to go, and you'll put a cookie on top of it and it'll totally smash together.
Yes, I know. I loved how you've been able to stack all these gorgeous cookies over here.
Yeah, I've got these ones, and these ones were pre-made, and yeah, they're hardened and ready to eat.
Or ready to ship.
Or ready to ship, yeah. I prefer the eating part of it, but you know.
I do too. Which is why I'm just gonna go for it.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
So you're my Galentine.
You're my Galentine.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Happy Valentine's Day. If you guys have any questions, please put them in the comments. And Angela here is our pro. We'll be back for more.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us, and have a great rest of your day.
Bye, guys. Good.
That's good.